what if I told you that the way your AI generates text right now is mathematically identical to a traffic jam?
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy. It relies on this one at a time single file lane.
Right, because you ask a question and the machine just scrambles to guess the very next word, and then the next word, and then the next.
And I mean, it's incredibly fast, obviously. But at its core, it is trapped in a strictly linear process.
Completely trapped.
Right. Reading left to right, generating left to right. And for a long time, the industry just, accepted that as the absolute unbreakable law of how large language models had to operate.
You couldn't skip a step any more than you could, like, drive through the car in front of you.
Exactly.
Well, today we are looking at the scientific breakthroughs that are blowing that bottleneck wide open. So welcome to today's morning briefing deep dive.
Glad to be here. We've got a lot to get through today.
We really do. We have a heavy stack of sources today. It's a mix of research publications, technical papers, university press releases, and our mission for this deep dive is basically to filter out the noise for you.
Right. We're skipping all the standard stuff.
Yeah, skipping the software version bumps, the product hype, the business news, none of that. Instead, we are looking only at the genuine paradigm shifts, the fundamental science changing how AI actually works under the hood.
The structural changes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
let's unpack this because we are looking at 3 specific leaps today. First, an entirely new way for AI to generate language in parallel. Then, a chemistry model that literally refuses to break the laws of physics.
That one is wild.
It is. And finally, an architecture that uses human body language to perform real-time voice-cloned translation.
Because what we're really witnessing right now is AI breaking out of its traditional, text box. It's embracing parallel thinking. It's taking on rigorous physical constraints. And it's starting to handle the chaotic, multi-sensory inputs of the real world. I mean, we are moving from models that just predict text to models that simulate reality.
Which is a huge leap. So let's unpack that first one because it directly attacks that single-file traffic jam we just talked about.
Right, the autoregressive problem.
Yeah. This comes from a MarkTech Post breakdown of NVIDIA's new model family. It's called Nemotron-Labs-Diffusion. And to understand why this is a massive leap, we kind of have to look at the current standard, which is, like you said, autoregressive generation.
The one word at a time guesser.
Right. And according to the research, doing it that way severely limits how much of the computer's actual brain power is being utilized. Right?
Absolutely. You're essentially feeding massive processing power through a tiny straw.
A tiny straw. I like that.
Because when an AI generates one token at a time, each new token depends entirely on the sequence of all the previous ones.
Right. Can't jump ahead.
No, it can't. And that dependency creates a massive bottleneck for your graphics processing unit, your GPU. I mean, modern GPUs are designed to do thousands of calculations at the exact same moment.
They want to multitask.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if the model is stuck waiting to figure out word number 4 before it can even begin calculating word number 5,
It's just sitting there.
yeah, your hardware utilization just plummets.
The processors are basically just waiting for the green light. And I mean, if you've ever tried running a heavy AI model locally on your laptop, you know what this looks like. Your fan spins up, your battery drains, and you're waiting seconds just for a single sentence to appear.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
That is the sequential bottleneck in action.
And that is exactly where the Nemotron breakthrough fundamentally changes the architecture.
So what did NVIDIA actually do here?
Well, they managed to unify 3 distinct ways of generating text into one single model. And they did it using the exact same underlying neural network weights.
Wait, 3 different ways in one model.
Yeah. It can do the standard one-at-a-time decoding, it can do diffusion-based parallel decoding, and it can do self-speculation.
Okay, I want to zero in on that diffusion mode.
Yeah.
Because usually when we hear diffusion, we think of image generators, right? Like Midjourney or whatever. Starting with TV static and slowly pulling a coherent picture out of the noise.
Right, denoising.
So how on earth does a language model use that mechanism for text?
It's super clever. It uses the same underlying philosophy, but applies it to language tokens.
Yeah.
So instead of guessing one word at a time, the model looks at a fixed-length block of empty spaces.
Like a whole chunk at once.
Right. Imagine a paragraph where all the words are blanked out.
Mm-hmm.
It then tries to fill in multiple blanks simultaneously.
Okay.
And because it's working on a whole block at once, the model is actually allowed to look in both directions. It looks at the words before a blank and the words after it.
Oh, wow. So it's filling in the middle of a sentence based on how it thinks the sentence ends.
Exactly. It's bidirectional.
But wait, if it's just throwing darts at a board of blanks, how does it know which guesses are actually good? I mean, it could just be generating gibberish.
Right, which is why it uses a specialized lightweight mechanism built right into the model. You can think of it as like a hyper-fast supervisor.
Okay, a supervisor.
Yeah, so the model makes a bunch of parallel guesses for all these blanks, and this supervisor instantly scans them to predict which ones are statistically correct.
Just scanning them all at once.
Yes, and the guesses it approves are locked in all at once during a single computational cycle.
Okay, so if we compare this to, like, building a brick wall,
Sure.
the old autoregressive way is laying one single brick at a time, and you have to wait for the mortar to dry on that brick before you can even touch the next one.
Right, painfully slow.
But this new diffusion mode is like dropping a whole prefabricated section of the wall at once, and then having a supervisor instantly swap out any cracked blanks before the cement even sets.
That captures the mechanics perfectly.
Hmm.
And the efficiency gains here are just staggering. Because when they trade the model to do this, they don't trade off accuracy to get that speed. The researchers balance the training, so the model learns the standard step-by-step method and the parallel diffusion method simultaneously.
Oh, they train them together.
Yeah, they actually reinforce each other. In practice, this allows the model to lock in nearly 6 times as many words per forward pass compared to standard models of a similar size.
6 times. That's insane. But let me push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Because human language is inherently logical, right? An argument builds on itself step by step. Premise, then conclusion. If this model is guessing ahead bidirectionally, just dropping in whole blocks of text at once, how does it maintain a coherent train of thought?
That is the exact question NVIDIA had to answer. And what's fascinating here is how they solved it through a very deliberate 2-stage training process.
Okay, 2 stages.
Right, they didn't just throw bidirectional guessing at it from day one. Stage 1 was forcing the model to learn the standard left-to-right logic for a massive 1 trillion tokens.
Wait, a full trillion tokens just learning the old way?
Yep, just the standard autoregressive way.
So they made it learn the rules of linear thought before they outbreak them.
Exactly that. They built incredibly strong linguistic foundations. So the model fundamentally understands how human logic flows from a premise to a conclusion.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then, in stage 2, they introduced the parallel diffusion training. And because it already possesses that deeply ingrained left-to-right logic from stage 1, it can leverage that understanding even when it's guessing out of order.
Oh, because it inherently knows how a sentence should structurally conclude.
Exactly, which is what allows it to accurately predict those future words in parallel without losing the plot. It has that foundational logic baked in.
That makes total sense. And this matters immensely for you, listening, if you want to run AI outside of a massive cloud server. I mean, breaking that sequential bottleneck and getting 6 times the output efficiency means your everyday edge devices, your phone, your local workstation, they can run incredibly complex, high-speed AI without melting your battery.
Right. It completely changes the latency expectations for local tools. It removes the reliance on massive data centers for fast inference.
Now, NVIDIA solved the speed problem by letting AI think in parallel, but speed is completely useless if the AI is hallucinating impossible answers.
Oh, 100%.
Which is exactly what happens when you ask an unconstrained AI to design a physical object. If you want an AI to generate a new medicine, for example, you have to force it to obey the laws of physics.
Which brings us to our second topic, the intersection of artificial intelligence and chemical engineering. Because, the stakes here are entirely different than generating a text summary or an email.
Way different. So we're looking at research out of MIT here, specifically from Connor Coley. He's the class of 1957 Career Development Associate Professor over there. And the sheer scale of the problem his lab is tackling is, honestly, it's difficult to conceptualize.
It really is.
When researchers are looking for new small molecule drugs, the kind of medicines that can target specific diseases, the estimated number of possible chemical compounds is somewhere between 10 to the power of 20 and 10 to the power of 60.
Yeah, and just to put that in perspective for a second.
Please do, because my brain can't handle those numbers.
There are roughly 10 to the power of 24 stars in the observable universe.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So we are talking about a search space so vast that evaluating each compound experimentally in a physical lab is literally impossible.
You'd need a billion lifetimes.
Exactly. You have to rely on computational models to narrow the field down.
And Colley's lab is building models to navigate this universe of molecules. They built one called Shepherd, which evaluates potential drugs based on how their 3D shapes physically interact with target proteins.
Right. It essentially gives the AI a medicinal chemistry intuition.
Yeah. But the really deep dive in this research focuses on a generative AI model called Flower. It predicts reaction products. And the fundamental scientific advance here is that MIT didn't just tell the AI to look for visual patterns in chemical data.
Which is what a lot of models do.
Right. Instead, they built an understanding of fundamental physical principles right into the model's architecture. Specifically, they hard-coded the law of conservation of mass.
And this is a crucial paradigm shift from standard generative AI.
Yeah.
Because standard AI is essentially unconstrained.
Right. It just does whatever it wants.
Exactly. I mean, if you ask a standard image generator for a picture of a hand, it might give you 6 fingers.
Yeah.
It doesn't know human biology. It's just arranging pixels based on statistical patterns it has seen before.
It's just guessing.
Yeah. But in chemistry, if an AI suggests a new molecule, but magically creates or destroys carbon atoms in the middle of the chemical reaction,
That molecule is completely useless.
it physically cannot exist. It is a pure hallucination.
Right. So by hard-coding the conservation of mass, the Flower model treats a chemical reaction like an unbreakable accounting ledger.
That's a great way to put it. An accounting ledger.
Yeah. It is mathematically compelled to consider the feasibility of the intermediate steps in a chemical pathway. It grounds the machine learning in actual, physically viable reaction mechanisms.
Yeah.
Every single atom that goes into the reaction must be accounted for on the other side.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like asking an AI to bake a cake.
Okay, I like this.
Previously, the AI just generated a photorealistic picture of a cake based on other pictures of cakes. But now, with Flower, it can't just draw the final product. It has to mathematically prove where every single gram of flour, sugar, and egg went during the baking process.
Right, it has to show its work.
Yeah, it has to account for the chemical reaction of the baking powder, and if the math doesn't add up to a real cake, it just refuses to output the result.
It shifts the AI from being a passive pattern matcher to an active physical simulator.
But wait, doesn't hard-coding rigid physical laws like mass conservation kind of defeat the fuzzy, creative pattern matching that makes neural networks so powerful to begin with? Because I always thought the whole point of AI was that it finds strange connections we humans miss because we are too bound by our existing rules.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to redefine what creativity means in the context of hard science.
Yeah, okay. How so?
Well, in art or poetry, unconstrained creativity is the goal, right? You want weird and wild. But in chemistry, unconstrained creativity is just a dead end.
Because it's not real.
Exactly. An AI that dreams up a miracle cure that requires breaking the laws of thermodynamics hasn't actually solved anything.
True.
So what MIT found is that these physical constraints actually improve the accuracy of the model's predictions. The constraints act as a funnel.
Oh, they focus the processing power.
Yes. They force the model away from impossible hallucinations and redirect all that immense computational power toward finding viable, executable innovations.
It forces the AI to think like an expert chemist instead of a surrealist painter.
Exactly.
And this represents a major turning point in how we apply machine learning. I mean, for you listening, this matters because we are moving from AI as a text guesser to AI as a rigorous scientific engine.
It's a massive shift.
Yeah, if the AI isn't wasting researchers' time inventing molecules that physically cannot be synthesized in a lab, the next breakthrough medicine could be discovered and tested years faster.
It bridges the gap between digital simulation and physical reality. I mean, it proves that algorithms can operate within the bounds of the natural world.
But, you know, the natural world isn't always as neat and tidy as a chemistry lab.
No, it definitely is not.
MIT is grounding AI in physics for a highly controlled environment. But human interaction out on the street isn't controlled. It's loud, it's messy, it's highly unpredictable. So how did these models evolve to handle the chaotic reality of human communication?
And that is exactly where we see the necessity of multimodal architectures. Relying on just a single type of input is no longer enough when you're dealing with the real physical world.
Which brings us to our third breakthrough. This one comes from Alibaba's Qwen team. They've just introduced Qwen 3.5 Live Translate Flash.
Quite the name.
Very catchy. But we are focusing strictly on the monumental leap in model capabilities here. They have achieved real-time multimodal interpretation, and they dropped the latency down to an astonishing 2.8
That's
seconds.
incredibly fast.
And they're doing it across 60 input languages.
That 2.8 seconds is critical too, because simultaneous interpretation is inherently fragile.
How so?
Well, if you add even a little bit of computational delay, you completely break the illusion of a real-time conversation. People end up talking over each other, getting
Like a
confused.
bad video call.
Exactly. So to get latency that low, especially across 60 languages, you have to fundamentally rethink how the model processes information.
And they did. They completely shifted the paradigm of what translation AI even looks at. The standard way is audio only, right? You speak into the mic, it translates.
Right.
But as the report notes, standard audio translation breaks down the minute you are in a noisy conference room or a crowded trade floor, or, if someone simply coughs near the microphone.
The signal degrades.
Right. So Qwen 3.5 solves this by treating vision as a first-class input alongside audio.
It recognizes that human communication is inherently multimodal. I mean, we don't just listen to words when we talk to someone. We constantly watch the speaker for context.
Yeah, body language is huge.
Absolutely. So the Qwen model analyzes lip movements, physical gestures, and any on-screen text simultaneously with the audio stream.
Wow.
And when the acoustic signal degrades, like when that microphone cuts out or the room just gets too loud, the visual context steps in to fill the gap. It literally uses the speaker's lips and hands to sharpen the translation decision in real time.
That is wild. But wait, even with all that extra visual data, how are they hitting that 2.8 second mark? If the model has to wait to see what my hands are doing, shouldn't that make it slower?
You would think so, but they use a mechanism called semantic unit prediction.
Okay, what is that?
Well, if a translation model waits for a human to hit a period and finish their entire sentence before it starts working, the latency will always be terrible.
Right, because people ramble.
Exactly. So semantic unit prediction means the model is trained to read units of meaning. It actively decides when enough meaning has accumulated in a segment of speech to commit to a translation.
Oh, I see.
It begins streaming that output continuously, translating chunks of intent before the speaker even finishes their thought.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But the feature that pushes this into completely new territory for me is the voice cloning.
Yeah, this is the really futuristic part.
Because standard translation gives you that generic, robotic synthesizer voice that sounds like a GPS from 2010. But Qwen 3.5 performs real-time voice cloning from just a single spoken sentence.
The acoustic adaptation happening under the hood there is incredibly sophisticated. When the AI hears that first sentence, it isn't just listening to the words. It is extracting a mathematical map of the speaker's vocal characteristics.
Like their pitch and tone.
Exactly. The pitch, the cadence, the specific timbre of their voice. And then it takes that mathematical map and overlays it onto the target language almost instantly.
It's mapping your acoustic identity. That's amazing. And it also solves a massive problem for enterprise use with dynamic keyword injection.
Oh yeah, that is a vital feature.
Yeah.
Because a huge failure point for translation AI is specialized vocabulary.
Technical jargon.
Right. I mean, mistranslating a phrase like solid tumor in a medical briefing or getting the name of a specific surgical tool wrong, that can be disastrous.
Literally life or death in that context.
Exactly. So by allowing dynamic keyword injection at runtime, users can basically feed the model a specific glossary. The model is then anchored to those proper nouns and technical terms, preventing hallucinations in high-stakes environments where precision is completely non-negotiable.
So what does this all mean? The latency drop, the multimodal lip reading, the keyword injection, it's brilliant engineering. But I have to ask about the implications of that voice cloning.
I figured you might.
Because if I speak one sentence in English and 2.8 seconds later the person across the table hears my exact voice speaking Chinese, perfectly matching my hand gestures, I mean, that is technologically incredible, but it raises a massive question about trust.
It definitely does.
If the machine sounds exactly like me in real time, what does that do to the authenticity of human connection? Are we just talking to digital avatars of each other at that point?
This raises an important question, right? About how we actually interact through technology. But if we look at the intent behind the engineering, the goal of reducing latency in cloning voice isn't deception.
Okay, what is it then?
It is actually about preserving nuance. Think about talking through a traditional robotic synthesizer. It strips away your emotion, your warmth, the subtle inflections that carry empathy.
It makes you sound like a machine.
Right. It creates this massive psychological barrier between you and the listener. By cloning your voice and matching your pace, the AI is trying to become invisible. It wants to preserve the human-to-human empathy that gets completely lost when it's filtered through a robotic drone.
Just trying to get out of the way.
Exactly.
So for you listening, if you are communicating with an international team or trying to speak with a patient who doesn't share your language, this means the end of clunky, delayed interactions.
Yeah.
AI is moving from being a passive tool you type into to being an active, transparent proxy.
A system that understands the visual and auditory context of your environment simultaneously.
Allowing you to communicate seamlessly without losing your personal identity.
It is the ultimate reduction of friction in global communication.
Wow. Okay, let's bring this all together, because the narrative arc of today's deep dive is really about AI breaking its own foundational rules to become something entirely new.
That's the common thread, yeah.
First, we saw AI stop generating in a single file line. NVIDIA's Nemotron proved that by using bidirectional diffusion, models can think in parallel, filling in whole blocks of logic at once.
Which massively speeds up how efficiently they run on our everyday devices.
Right. Then we saw AI stop ignoring the physical world. MIT's Flower model baked the law of conservation of mass directly into its architecture.
Proving that in hard science, forcing an AI to obey physical constraints doesn't limit its potential. It actually unlocks its ability to discover viable, real-world solutions.
Finding real medicines instead of just generating digital hallucinations. And finally, we saw AI stop relying purely on clean audio in a vacuum. Alibaba's Qwen model embraced the noisy, unpredictable reality of human interaction using vision, lip reading, and instant acoustic mapping.
Preserving the speaker's humanity in the process. Each of these breakthroughs represents a model escaping the artificial confines we originally built for it.
Which leaves us with a final, slightly mind-bending thought to mull over. We've looked at these three leaps in isolation today, but what happens when these architectures inevitably merge?
That's the real question.
Imagine a near-future system where these capabilities overlap. Imagine an AI scientist that uses NVIDIA's parallel diffusion to think at blinding speeds, utilizing MIT's physical constraints to mathematically guarantee a novel, physically viable drug to treat a specific illness in seconds.
And then it uses Qwen's architecture to act as a proxy.
Right. That same AI acts as a transparent proxy for your doctor. It explains the complex treatment to you in the empathetic, cloned voice of actual physician, speaking your native language perfectly.
Dynamically adjusting its explanation by reading the subtle micro-expressions of confusion or relief on your face in real time.
Where does the software end and the human surrogate begin? When a system is perfectly constrained by physical reality, operates at parallel speeds, and perfectly mimics human empathy, the line between a computational tool and an active collaborator just disappears entirely.
It's a fascinating future to think about.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and remember, the next time you type a prompt into a text box, the machine on the other side might already be thinking 10 steps ahead, accounting for the physics of the universe, and getting ready to answer you in your own voice. Have a great morning.